Okay, so it's 2021 and you guys are wanting to build that computer, whether it's for gaming or for work or for school, and you just have no idea what you're getting into. What parts do you buy? Or more importantly, what's the best method to take to finding the best and most compatible parts for your PC? Let's find out. Alrighty, let's dive right into my favorite site, pcpartpicker.com. What this site's gonna do is it's gonna read you a list of a bunch of different parts. It's gonna obviously, I think it's gonna start with the most popular parts first and go down if you're just doing it. But if you guys can actually use their search tool as well, and you can pull down a whole list of different types of parts to use. But let's dive right into that so you guys can see exactly what you guys, what the site can offer you. Okay, so we're on the pcpartpicker.com, which I do have the website linked down in the description below. So as you guys can see here, this site's pretty straightforward. You're just gonna go into the system builder. And the cool thing about this site is it actually has the option on here where it shows you what the links are to each of the affiliates that actually currently have the part in stock. So you guys do not need to go and deal with that yourself. The only thing is you are gonna have some trouble finding like the graphics cards, the new ones like the 3070, 3080, and the 3090. This is primarily because there is a shortage right now. So let's get started. So for the CPU, just to give you guys an idea, you're gonna want something. The CPU is one of the most important parts of the PC. So you're gonna want something like the Ryzen 5 or the Ryzen 7. So for the sake of this video, I'm gonna go with the Ryzen 7. And I'm gonna choose a different CPU cooler, even though if you guys are on a budget build, you should know that the CPU cooler does come in the box with the CPU. But for the sake of this video, I am going to go with the RGB Cooler Master Hype 212, the black one, which is 3878. As you guys can see here, this one is located on newegg.com, and then this one's located on amazon.com. And the thing is, if you guys are free building this and you don't go with my guide here off pcpartpicker.com, then you should know that the chipset needs to match with the AMD or the Intel. So if you're going with an Intel processor, you need to make sure that the chipset matches with the AMD, and you need to make sure all your parts are compatible. Otherwise, you will run into issues down the line. So let's get back into this. I'm gonna go with this B450 Tomahawk for the board. And we're gonna go with the DDR4. I'm gonna go with the 3600 megahertz RAM. And just as a side note on the RAM, if you guys are going with like a 3200 megahertz and you're going with like 32 gigabytes of that, I would actually recommend toning it down a little bit and getting 16 gigabytes of DDR4 at maybe like a 3600 megahertz. You might see a bit of a drastic improvement in speed, because the higher the megahertz RAM, the better of speed that you're actually gonna get. And you don't necessarily wanna mix a 3200 and a 3600 megahertz RAM. So in a way, you kind of are future-proofing that PC a little bit better. And we are going to go here with the hard drive. I like to get an SSD and a hard drive. It's just a personal preference where I have a ton of space on the hard drive and only something like a terabyte on the SSD drive. I do like to generally go with two different hard drives. Like I mentioned, the one that's a regular hard drive and the one that's an SSD drive. The reason why I like to do this is because you can create a second bootable drive on your PC. I will be releasing a tutorial on how to do that another time, but for right now, all you need to know is that if you guys do buy a second hard drive that is a full-on hard drive, and you keep your startup on your on the SSD, then you guys will have a lot better and a lot faster of a startup, as well as just a more generally optimized PC. So I like to put like the games or the files onto the actual hard drive and keep only the essentials on the SSD. It also makes more of a budget build, but if money is not your concern, then you guys could just go with a rather large SSD. It just can get a little bit more pricey. So we're gonna add an additional hard drive here. I never go under 8 terabytes. Oh, it's SSD. Let's continue looking for a hard drive. Something like this will work. As you guys can see, here's 4 terabytes for $79.99 on Newegg. Okay, so then the video card. As far as graphics go, I do have some videos released that I'm going to link down in the description below on what types of graphics cards are currently available, which is better, like the 3060 or the 3070. A lot of these cards are right now sold out. So for the purpose of this video, I did just select a 6GB graphics card because I know that a lot of these 3060s and 3080s will not be currently in stock. So in one of my other videos, I talked about this a little bit more, that you guys can actually go find one from a private seller, but it might be a little bit more of a markup on that. So one thing to note is if this is your first PC, I would just recommend staying in that 4 to 6 gigabyte range because you'll still be able to game on it at a pretty good FPS, but you won't be able to game in 4K. So now if you are trying to game in 4K, one thing I would recommend is I would definitely recommend expending between $400 to $600 and getting something with higher gigabytes as well as higher compute units, just so that you guys can have a more optimal 4K gaming experience. It's just something to know. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to choose just an 8 gigabyte or a, let's see what we have here. I'm going to choose just a 6 gigabyte Asus TUF gaming graphics card there. And for the purpose of this video as well, I'm just going to choose a 750 watt power supply. So you guys are going to also make sure that you want to check your wattage. Your overall wattage is important, or TDP. And what this means is you want to make sure that whatever parts that you buy do not go over the power supply's capability. Otherwise, you could short that power supply and be out however much money you spent on that power supply. So a good way to do this is to check each part individually and make sure that they fall under that whatever range. So if you buy a 750 watt power supply, make sure that that power supply, that the parts that you buy, are capable of being under, I'd like to say between 60 to 100 watts under the power supply that you bought. On another note about power supplies, there's different ratings that go all the way up to platinum. What these ratings mean is how well and how long this power supply is generally good for. So if you guys keep an eye on that as well, make sure to buy the highest grade power supply unless you're on a budget. And in that case, just make sure it's not a bronze. And we are going to go with just the basic Windows 10 Home. And a case. I don't really feel a need that we need an optical drive. For the case, I'm definitely gonna want something cool in RGB to match the cooler I bought. So we'll go with this $94 Phantix Eclipse P400A digital case. And I don't know if we really need this software option, so let's just skip over that. I don't need a monitor either because I already have a monitor as well as a keyboard and mouse. So I'm just going to continue here. But as you can see, the total for this build came out to $1,809.43. And we have the place to buy on this build. And what I'm gonna do for you guys here is I'm gonna throw together a nice new video once I do have all of these parts that I'm ordering on here. It may not be in a week, it may not be in a month, but once I get all of these parts ordered, I will be putting out a video on the build of these parts, just so you guys can see how well the computer did turn out. But what we're gonna do here is we're just gonna confirm that everything's the way that we said. So you guys can see we do have the AMD RYZEN 7 which is one of the better processors on the market right now, with a Cooler Master RGB CPU cooler, an MSI V450 Tomahawk as the motherboard, and the Microsoft Windows 10 OEM 64-bit for $108, total amount being $1809.43. There's this little button here too on the bottom, buy from Amazon, which that's just gonna put all these up here on Amazon and what is not currently on Amazon or is currently out of stock. So you guys will just need to go ahead and buy these, but you can use these as a reference as well. So like if you are just referencing your current build, one thing as well that you can do is you can go back to this site and just say, hey, I need to go back on here and see if this board is compatible with my current setup or if this RAM is compatible with my current board. For the purpose of today's video, I stayed away from liquid cooling options as well as overclocking. And the reason why I did this is because if it's your first time building a computer, these things can be really scary. So I am going to be releasing some videos here soon on how to properly overclock your PC, as well as how to properly set up and install liquid cooling on your PC. But for right now, if this is your first time building, I recommend you keep it simple and you do just the basics, as you can always add on to your computer later on. And if you're like me and you like to buy things on eBay a lot, then one thing I would suggest is to check the seller's reliability. So if you find a bunch of parts on the PC part picker and you don't know how reliable those are, or you don't want to spend that kind of money, one thing you could do is you could go to eBay or Facebook Marketplace, but make sure if you do that you're checking the reliability of the seller on there to just ensure that you guys don't get screwed over, as these parts can cost a lot of money. Okay guys, so now that we've been through the list on PC Part Picker, let's talk about some other things that you're going to want to make sure you're doing while buying your PC parts. So I know we talked about PC Part Picker and the types of deals that you can get, how it does tend to pull the best deal off of the internet. One thing to note though is how much do you actually trust these third-party sites? So if you see on PC Part Picker that something's $160, for example, and that's the part that you really want to have after doing your research on that part, then I would take that part number or part name and type it in on Amazon or your local computer parts store if it's from a sketchy site that's not Newegg or Amazon or Best Buy. Because what you're going to do here is you're going to ensure that you're getting the part from a trusted source, because as a lot of these sites like PC Part Picker do tend to pull the part from the cheapest and not necessarily the most reliable. In conclusion guys, if you are new to building PCs, I would recommend PC Part Picker to help you guys through the entire build. I do not have an affiliation with the site. I just really enjoy using it for just general stuff as well as checking compatibility. But if you are a more advanced PC builder and you're just watching this video because you want to know how to further pick out parts or better pick out parts, a lot of us, what we do end up doing is going back to PC Part Picker on our current build and just seeing if whatever part that we throw in there is going to be compatible. All right guys, that is all to today's video. I hope I helped you guys out, but if you guys need any more help on more resources such as how to build a PC, the beginner's guide start to finish, I have that down in the description below. Feel free to check out our other content as well. For the next 2 weeks, for example, we're posting new content every 2 days. So check those new videos out, give us a like, smash that subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.